My name is Elias Stone, and I died. This is not a metaphor. This is not a vision. I died, fully, violently, and without warning. The breath left my body like a whisper swallowed by a storm. I crossed that invisible line, that final thread we pretend isn't there. And what I saw on the other side has left me trembling ever since. I was shown what happens to the soul in the first 3 days after death. Even now, the memory burns behind my eyes like a holy fire I cannot put out. I tried to stay silent. I tried to return to my life and pretend it was just a dream. But the truth would not let me rest. The visions followed me into sleep. The voices echoed in my waking hours. The pain of what I saw, of what I felt, it tore through the veil I once called ignorance. I was awakened. And once the veil is torn, it never mends again. I should not be here. I know that. I was meant to cross over and remain. But he pulled me back, not with chains but with a calling. A voice older than time, deeper than thunder, softer than wind. He said my name in the dark. And when he did, everything I thought I understood about life, about death, about judgment, collapsed into dust. There are things I cannot unknow. There are truths I cannot bury. And there is a weight in my soul, like blood on my tongue, because I made a vow. If I lived, I would speak. So I speak now. Not for attention. Not for redemption. But because this is obedience. I saw the border between this world and the next. And I saw what waits for us in the hours after we die. It is not what you think. It is not peaceful at first. It is not light and songs and golden gates. It is a reckoning, a divine unraveling, a terrifying mercy. In those first 3 days, your soul is stripped, not by punishment but by presence, not by wrath but by revelation. On the first day you remember. On the second day you see. On the third day you choose. This truth was not given to me for keeping. It is not a treasure, it is a torch. It burns. It scars. But it also reveals. So I carry it now, not because I am worthy, but because I was commanded. He called my name in the dark. He called my name in the dark. He called my name in the dark. And I returned with fire in my bones. Not my own fire. This is what I saw. Return to the fire. Before the light there was noise. Before the fire there was fog. My name is Elias Stone, and before death broke me open, I lived like most men do, half asleep, half listening. Moving through the rhythm of days that blurred together like mist against glass. Wake, brush, work, scroll, sleep, repeat. The machinery of modern life had swallowed me whole, and I mistook the vibration for purpose. I woke every morning to the soft buzz of a screen before I greeted the silence of God. I reached for coffee before I remembered to breathe with intention. I moved through emails and schedules and deadlines and meetings with the urgency of survival but without the hunger of the soul. I had traded communion for convenience, devotion for distractions, the sacred for the synthetic. And yet, deep down beneath the steel rhythm of my routine, there was a quiet ache, a strange emptiness I could not name, like standing in a beautiful house with no roof. It all looked whole, but something was missing. I remember driving through traffic one morning, watching the sun rise through the filth on my windshield, and thinking, why do I feel so far from everything real? There were signs. There were warnings. Not loud, not violent, just whispers. I remember a night when the air grew heavy in my room and I couldn't sleep. Not from fear, but from something else. Like a presence just beyond the walls, waiting. I got up, walked to the window, looked into the dark, and felt like I was being watched. Not by anything malicious, but by something ancient, patient, a holy silence pressing. I shook it off. Another time I stood in church while a worship song played and I felt nothing. Not offense, not awe, just silence. My lips moved with the words but my spirit stood still. And I wondered in that moment if God still recognized my voice. I had become religious in habit but hollow in heart. I wore faith like a coat, never realizing my skin beneath had gone numb. I was busy doing good things. I was kind. I was respectable. But I was disconnected, floating, drifting slowly away from the very one I claimed to serve. He called my name in the dark, but I was too busy to hear. He called my name in the dark, and I drowned it in noise. He called my name in the dark, and I silenced it with comfort. The urgency was there. The clock was ticking, but I couldn't hear the seconds falling like thunder. I was deafened by my own distraction. Looking back now, I realize death didn't come to me suddenly. It crept in like a quiet tide. It walked beside me long before it touched me. It was in the exhaustion I ignored, the headaches I blamed on stress, the tightening in my chest that I brushed off as tension. My soul knew something was unraveling, but my mind refused to stop long enough to listen. I had been invited to rest, but I chose to run. I had been called to stillness, but I chose to strive. I had been nudged to pray, not as a task but as a return, and I chose noise instead. That is how men lose their souls, slowly, politely, in the comfort of normalcy. Not through violence, but through forgetfulness. I forgot who I was. I forgot who he was. I forgot how close the veil really is. We think death is far. We think eternity waits. But I tell you now, as one who has crossed the threshold, the veil is thinner than breath. It dances against our skin every moment we live unaware. Return to the fire. Return to the fire. Return to the fire. This life we live, it is not neutral. It shapes us. It bends us toward the eternal, whether we choose to see it or not. Every small moment is eternal in disguise. Every idle word has weight. Every silence is a song waiting to be sung in heaven's ear. But I didn't know, or perhaps I refused to know. So he let me die. He called my name in the dark, and when I answered, the truth began to unfold. I had forgotten the sacred, and so he brought me back to it, through death. It happened on a Tuesday, the kind of day that carries no omen. The sky was gray but unthreatening, and the breeze whispered nothing of the eternal. I was sitting at my desk, staring into a screen filled with numbers, deadlines, the endless machinery of distraction. My phone buzzed. My coffee had gone cold. And then silence. Not the kind you hear, but the kind that enters you. It began with a tightening. A subtle contraction in my chest, like invisible fingers curling around my heart. I remember blinking slowly as if the world itself had suddenly thickened. My arms felt foreign. My breath grew shallow. Time, which had always been my master, lost its rhythm. And in that suspended hush, I knew something sacred and terrible was unfolding. Then the pain came. But it wasn't sharp. It wasn't loud. It was deep. Like the ache of a soul being untethered from flesh. A soft tearing. A holy violence. My body slumped forward. I saw my hand twitch. I heard the clatter of the coffee mug fall and shatter against the floor. But I wasn't inside it anymore. I had left. I rose, slowly, effortlessly, like mist leaving the surface of a lake at dawn. I turned and saw myself. My body. Crumpled. Fragile. Mortal. Eyes wide but empty. Lips parted as if they still wanted to call out. But the voice was gone. It had returned to the breath from which it came. And in that moment I felt no fear. Only awe. Because the moment you leave the body, the truth begins to speak. There is no confusion. No wondering where you are. The soul knows. It always knew. But in life we muffle that knowing with logic, with routine, with comfort. But here, outside of the body, truth rises like incense, and every lie you ever believed burns away. I was not alone. There was a presence, near, watching, waiting. Not with judgment. Not with malice. But with solemn stillness. As if heaven itself were holding its breath. He called my name in the dark, and I remembered every moment I ignored him. Every whisper I brushed aside. Every hour I traded the eternal for the urgent. And yet, in that remembering, I was not condemned. I was known. My soul hovered between here and there, between the crumbling ruins of mortality and the echoing expanse of eternity. I could see the room, the building, the street below. I saw people walking, oblivious. I saw the world continuing, indifferent to the departure of one soul. And I thought, was this how it always happened? Quietly, without ceremony? And yet, for the soul, it was anything but quiet. It was thunder. It was unveiling. It was the first crack of the eternal gate. And something within me was being pulled, not pushed, not forced, but gently summoned. As if a voice I had always known was calling me back through layers of light and memory. There was no tunnel, not yet. There was just unfolding. A slow peeling back of everything that had once felt solid. I felt my fears detach like leaves from a tree in autumn. I felt the weight of my titles, my worries, my ambitions fall off like dust from my feet. I was becoming soul. Pure. Bare. True. And as I rose higher, I could feel the threshold, thin, holy humming. a veil so delicate it could be mistaken for breath. And yet it separated everything I had known from everything I had forgotten. He called my name in the dark, and I answered, not with words, but with surrender, with the still, quiet yes that only a soul can give when it finally sees itself in the eyes of eternity. I was not afraid. I was not alone. I was seen. And the deeper I moved into that unveiling, the more I understood. This was not just death. This was return. Return to the fire. Return to the fire. Return to the fire. The body was behind me. The world was below me. And before me, the great unknown opened its mouth not to devour me, but to reveal me. I had crossed over. And what lay ahead would unmake everything I thought I knew about life, about love, about judgment, and about grace. The veil lifted like breath evaporating from glass. One moment, I hovered at the edge of the body I once called home, and the next I was moving, not with feet, not with wings, but with will. There was no wind, no gravity. I was being drawn forward, inward, upward, all at once. And yet, there was no movement as we understand it. It was as though my soul remembered how to travel without distance. Then came the light. Not a beam, not a blaze, but a presence. Living, breathing, holy. It did not blind me, it welcomed me. It was not around me, it was within me. It knew me. And in its warmth, every fear I didn't know I still carried dissolved like frost under flame. There was no sound as we know it, but there was music. If music could be made of memory and mercy, it rose like waves from the very fabric of that realm. Each note held a name, a prayer, a sigh. And I realized I was inside a symphony that had never stopped playing. I had only stopped listening. The air was alive. It pulsed with intelligence, with truth, with the weight of eternity compressed into fragrance and light. There were colors I cannot name and shapes that shifted like living scripture. Every detail, every shimmer carried meaning, pure, unspeakable meaning. He called my name in the dark. And now, the dark was gone. I stood on what I can only describe as a path, not made of stone or dust, but of woven moments. Yes, woven, threads of memory and love and loss stitched into a glowing corridor. And as I moved, each step awakened something long dormant in me. I could feel the prayers of my childhood, the tears of my mother, the questions I never dared speak. They all echoed here not as burdens, but as guideposts. I saw others, souls, drifting like rivers of light. Some passed quickly, peaceful, radiant. Others lingered, flickering, heavy with something unfinished. They moved slowly like songs still searching for resolution. One soul drifted beside me for a breathless eternity. And though no words were spoken, I knew them. I knew their regret. I knew their longing. I knew they had stayed too long in the shallows of life and now feared the depths of truth. But there was no shame here, no accusation, only invitation. Every moment in this realm whispered the same plea. Return to the fire. Return to the fire. Return to the fire. And then, I understood. This was not a place. This was a presence. I had not entered heaven. I had entered him. I was inside the breath of God, the memory of the Maker, the chamber of beginnings. I could feel his heart beating in the space between light and silence. And it did not terrify me, it undid me. Not as a punishment, but as a purification. Here time did not exist. Only awareness. Only revelation. I do not know how long I stood on that path of memory, how many layers I shed, how many echoes I heard. But every second felt like a lifetime, and every lifetime like a single sigh. And with every breath, I felt it building. Something was approaching. Not like footsteps. Not like thunder. But like the rising of a tide too ancient to stop. It was not coming from outside me. It was coming from beyond me. A knowing. A pull. A holy summons. He called my name in the dark. And now he was about to speak. I knew it in my soul before I saw it with my eyes. Something sacred was about to be shown, not just to observe, but to carry. I was not brought here to admire the light. I was brought here to remember what I had forgotten, and to return with it. And so I stood still on that glowing path, wrapped in peace, vibrating with awe, waiting for the voice that split time to split me, waiting for the revelation that would burn through every falsehood I had ever believed, waiting to be known. Return to the fire. He called my name in the dark. Return to the fire. And then the light moved. It did not grow louder. It did not grow brighter. It grew nearer. And with every breathless pulse of that nearness, something inside me broke open. The walls I had built with years of busyness and logic and pride crumbled. The questions I had buried beneath doctrine and doubt rose like smoke. And I knew I was not alone in that radiant stillness. He was there. Not a figure with robes and sandals, not the paintings we hang in sanctuaries, but presence itself, pure, patient, piercing. He did not need to introduce himself. Every fiber of who I was knew him before the veil of flesh was ever formed around me. Jesus. Not the name on a page. Not the sermon I once yawned through. But the fire beneath creation, the breath inside every breath I had ever taken. He was not distant. He was not gentle in the way we think of gentleness. He was consuming, and yet, I did not fear him. I feared the weight of my own soul standing in the presence of such mercy. I wanted to fall, but there was no ground. I wanted to speak, but there was no need. Because in his gaze, my entire life unfolded. Not chronologically, not in flashbacks. It came as a knowing, complete, immediate, devastating, beautiful. He showed me, not what I had done but what my actions had done to others. I felt the tears I had caused, not just the ones I witnessed. I tasted the silence I had offered when truth begged to be spoken. I saw the moments I had walked past the wounded because it wasn't convenient to care. He did not accuse me. He simply let me see. And that was enough. I saw the time I spoke harshly to my father and called it truth. I saw the prayer I didn't pray because I was too tired. I saw the neighbor I avoided because their grief made me uncomfortable. I saw the person I judged because they didn't fit into my version of righteousness. And I wept. Not outwardly, not with eyes, but with soul, with the deepest part of me. I wept for the man I could have been if only I had loved more deeply, forgiven more quickly, obeyed more fully. He called my name in the dark, and he called me still. There was no shadow in him, no manipulation, just truth, radiant and gentle and terrifying. He was fire, and I was offered to it, not to be destroyed but to be refined. And then, he spoke, not with voice but with knowing. A flood of sacred clarity filled me, and these were the words engraved into the marrow of my being. You were brought here to witness. You are not here to visit. You are here to remember. And if I return you, you must speak. I trembled, because in that moment I understood I was being given access. Not privilege, not reward, but responsibility. I was being allowed to see what happens in the first 3 days after death, not for fascination but for warning, not for spectacle, but for salvation. This was not an invitation to curiosity. It was a commissioning. He opened something behind him, like a veil of woven light and sound. It shimmered as though made of breath and thunder. And as it parted, I felt time unravel. The memory of earth dimmed, and something sacred pressed into my soul with the weight of eternity. This is what they never told us. This is what is coming for us all. And I had been chosen to carry it back. He did not beg me. He did not threaten me. He simply stood, holy, still, sovereign. And in the silence, I gave him my yes. Not because I was brave, but because I was undone. He called my name in the dark. He showed me who I was in the light. He called my name in the dark, and he trusted me to carry the fire. He called my name in the dark, and he gave me a vow to fulfill. Return to the fire. Return to the fire. Return to the fire. And so I walked forward, into the veil that separated knowing from understanding, memory from revelation, time from eternity. I did not know what I would see, only that I must see it. Only that if I lived, I must tell you, what happens to the soul in the first 3 days is not what you've been told, but it is what you must know. There is no sunrise in the realm beyond, no ticking clock, no movement of the sun to mark the passing of time. But still, there are days, 3 days, not as the earth counts them, but as eternity reveals them. They are not measured in hours, they are measured in unveiling. And what was shown to me in those 3 days, what was pressed into my spirit with holy fire, was not a dream, not a parable. It was reality beyond all realities. It was what you will face. What every soul will face when breath leaves the body and silence becomes the language of God. Day 1. The day of remembrance. It began like a mirror held up to my soul, not a glass reflection but a living memory. Everything I had done, returned. Every moment, every word, every silence, every choice. But this was no highlight reel of success or failure. No, it was deeper. It was sharper. I remembered things I had long forgotten, small moments that had seemed meaningless, but in this realm they burned with significance. A passing glance I gave to a stranger laced with judgment. A text message I never replied to. A harsh word spoken to my wife during an argument years ago. It all came back, but not to torment me, to reveal me. And more than that, he let me feel what others felt because of me. Not only what I did, but what I caused. The tears behind someone's smile. The weight someone carried because I didn't notice. The shame I left in another heart when I laughed at the wrong moment. It was all there. Not as accusation, but as truth. And this truth was holy. I saw my words like arrows. Some lifted others, some pierced. I saw my silences, where I could have spoken life and chose comfort. I saw my selfishness disguised as busyness. My fear dressed up as caution. My ego cloaked in theology. I saw it all. The masks, the excuses, the deeders. And yet, I was not condemned. Because as each memory surfaced, a deeper whisper echoed. He called my name in the dark. And even in the remembering, His mercy held me. Day 2. The day of revelation. This day was not about what I did. It was about what I was meant to do. The book was opened, not pages but purpose. I saw the blueprint of my soul, the divine intention behind my existence. I saw the gifts I had buried, the assignments I had delayed, the people I was meant to touch but didn't because I was too insecure, too distracted, too busy surviving. He showed me the prayers I never prayed but should have, the dreams I silenced, the prophetic burdens I called too intense, the kindnesses I withheld, the callings I dismissed because they felt too costly. It was not wrath that wounded me, it was clarity, because I had lived beneath my calling. I had mistaken comfort for obedience. I had chosen safety over surrender. And heaven showed me not just what I did, but who I could have been. This is where the sorrow deepened. Not because he accused me, but because I finally saw what I had traded. And for what? Applause? Stability? Reputation? I saw it, the fire I was meant to carry, the healing I was meant to speak, the children I was meant to guide, the soul I was meant to rescue with one word of courage. And all of it, I let pass like wind through open fingers. It was not the devil who stole these things from me. It was my hesitation, my distraction, my refusal to return to the fire. Everything was recorded, not in judgment but in justice. Every yes I whispered, every no I chose, every moment the Spirit nudged and I shrugged. And still, he stayed near. He did not flinch. He did not leave. Because mercy does not walk away when truth enters the room. He called my name in the dark. And he called me even when I walked in the light without listening. Day 3. The day of decision. This was the hardest, because I thought judgment came from God. But it doesn't. It comes from truth. When the soul stands bare in the light, it begins to lean. Not by command, not by force, but by recognition. The soul begins to move toward what it resembles, toward what it trusted, toward what it loved most while it still had breath. For some, the lean is toward light, toward the familiar voice of the shepherd they walked with in secret. For others, the lean is toward shadow, not because they were evil but because they never answered the call. They knew of him but not with him. The soul chooses, and the choice is irreversible. I felt the battle within me. Shame screamed, regret clawed, but mercy waited. He didn't beg, he didn't plead, he stood. And in that stillness I had to choose. Would I run from the light or fall into it? Would I let shame define me or let surrender redeem me? Would I resist again or collapse into the mercy that never left me? And with trembling spirit I leaned. I leaned toward him, not because I was worthy but because I was willing. Because I saw that he had never withheld himself from me, even when I withheld my love from him. He called my name in the dark, and in the fire of day 3, I answered. And that is what sets the tone for eternity. Not how good we were, not how much we knew, but how we responded when the veil was torn and the fire was offered. 3 days, 3 unveilings, 3 mercies. And now I carry them in me, not as theology but as testimony. Return to the fire. Return to the fire. Return to the fire. Because one day, it will be your first day, and the remembering will begin, and the fire will rise, and the voice will call. and you will lean toward what you loved most. Let it be him. Let it be mercy. Let it be fire. And after the third day had passed, after the soul had remembered, after it had been shown, after it had chosen, he took me deeper still, not into punishment, not into reward, but into revelation. I felt myself drawn through another veil, one I hadn't seen before, thin as breath, yet humming with unbearable intensity. This was no longer about me. This was about us. What he showed me next was not personal, it was prophetic. It began as a ripple, gentle, golden, moving across what looked like the skin of the earth. And then it spread. It was not fire in the natural sense. It was spiritual fire, truth fire, refining fire. It moved through nations like a storm of remembering. I saw cities trembling beneath awakening. I saw church buildings emptying, not out of rebellion but out of hunger. I saw people walking out not into darkness but into wilderness, searching not for lights or stages but for him. I saw a rising remnant. They were barefoot and bruised, scarred by suffering and silence, but their eyes burned with recognition. They were not the famous. They were not the loud. They were not those with microphones and platforms. They were the hidden ones. The ones who wept behind closed doors. The ones who carried the fire when the world went cold. The ones who had said yes in obscurity. And they were rising. Across continents, across tribes, across tongues, I saw the same hunger igniting like wildfire. Young and old, rich and poor. Nations forgotten by the world but remembered by heaven. The earth was trembling, not in destruction but in preparation. He called their names in the dark, and they answered. I saw deception begin to crack like old clay. I saw lies, centuries old, splinter under the pressure of awakening. Religions twisted for profit. Doctrines weaponized for power. Truth diluted to preserve comfort. All of it unraveling. And I saw people turning, not to noise but to stillness. Not to systems but to the Spirit. Not to new beliefs, but to ancient truth. Return to the fire. That was the cry. That was the call echoing in the souls of men like thunder underwater. I saw healers walking through hospitals where machines had failed and prayer had begun. I saw children prophesying in back alleys and marketplaces. I saw artists painting visions they didn't understand. I saw scientists unlocking mysteries they didn't seek. And in it all, I saw him. But this awakening, it was not soft. It came with shaking. It came with tearing. It came with exposure. What could be shaken was shaken. Governments, institutions, voices, even pulpits. The counterfeit crumbled. The showman fell. The wolves scattered. And the sheep who had been wandering, starved and silent, heard the shepherd's voice again. He called their names in the dark, and they began to remember. I saw nations fall to their knees, not in defeat but in holy surrender. I saw war zones turn into worship tents. I saw prisons erupt in prayer. I saw the last becoming first. I saw the ignored becoming the ignited. And in the sky above all of it, I saw the veil thinning, the barrier between seen and unseen dissolving. Miracles no longer rare. Encounters no longer reserved. The Spirit of God was flooding the dry places like an unstoppable tide. And then, I saw the warning, not from wrath but from love. A voice, ancient and full of sorrow, saying, they must choose now, because this awakening, it is not automatic. It is an invitation. It is a trumpet. It is the final call before the great unveiling. The fire is coming, not to burn but to reveal. And every soul must decide, will you remain in the smoke of lies? Or will you walk into the flame of truth? The new world is not coming through politics. It is not coming through policy or protest. It is coming through purity, through repentance, through resurrection. The remnant is not being recruited, they are being revealed. He called my name in the dark. He's calling yours. Return to the fire. Return to the fire. Return to the fire. I saw this, not as a metaphor, not as a dream, but as a witness. Because what is coming is not revival as we have known it. It is reformation. It is reckoning. It is the great return to the Gospels, stripped of glamour and greed. And it begins with those who have nothing left to lose but their silence. I am one of them. I speak now because I must. I speak now because you were meant to hear. He called my name in the dark, and he's calling yours. When I returned, it was not with celebration. There were no trumpets, No cheers. No angels at my bedside. I opened my eyes in a hospital room, the scent of sterilized survival all around me. Machines blinked. Tubes pulsed. My chest ached with every breath as though the veil had left claw marks on my ribs. And yet, I was not the same. My body had survived, but my soul had been rewritten. There was a stillness in me, but not the kind born of peace. It was the stillness of knowing. The silence of having seen too much. I looked around and realized no one else knew what I carried. Not the nurse adjusting my four. Not the doctor checking my vitals. Not even the loved ones who wept when I finally spoke. Because how do you explain it? How do you describe eternity to those still measuring life in hours? How do you speak of fire when the room is full of fog? I tried. I tried with trembling lips and sleepless eyes. I whispered fragments of what I saw. I told them about the 3 days. I told them about the fire, the voice, the choice. I told them he had shown me what waits beyond the veil. That we are not ready. That we are not listening. They smiled, nodded, offered comfort. And then, they looked away. Some said it was the medication. Some said it was trauma. Some said I needed rest. But I didn't need rest. I needed the world to wake up. He called my name in the dark, and now I stood among the living, burning with a message no one wanted to hear. And that's when it began, the resistance. Quiet at first, then louder, sharper. The dreams came first, not gentle ones, dark ones. Rooms filled with shadow and whisper. Faces twisted in mockery. Familiar voices repeating lies I hadn't heard since childhood. I'd wake with my heart pounding, drenched in sweat, and hear the silence after, as if something had been watching me through the dream. Then the electronics. My phone would glitch when I tried to record what I saw. Files would disappear. Audio would distort. One night, as I typed out part of my experience, the screen went black and a single line remained, pulsing. Be quiet. I closed the laptop and wept. He had shown me glory. Now the darkness wanted me mute. It wasn't just technology. It was people too. Relationships I thought were anchored, unraveled. Friends I confided in ghosted me. Even in church, when I tried to share, I was politely silenced. Too intense, they said. Too strange. Too unsettling. But the truth is unsettling. The fire does not coddle. The more I spoke, the more I lost. And yet, the more I stayed silent, the more I withered. He called my name in the dark, and silence would not save me. Obedience would. So I spoke. I wrote. I whispered. I cried. And for every word I released, a shadow tried to swallow it. Anxiety returned, though I had known peace. Doubt whispered, though I had seen truth. Darkness encircled me, though I had stood in the light. They don't want this message to spread. Not them in flesh and blood, but them in the spirit. The ones who profit from slumber. The ones who feed on distraction. The ones who tremble at the sound of awakening. Every attack told me I was close. Every silence told me the world wasn't ready. Every tear told me this was holy. I had become a carrier of fire in a world made of paper. And paper burns when truth speaks. I walked through days where I felt abandoned. Nights where I questioned if I imagined it all. But then, in the middle of despair, I would feel it. That same voice. That same presence. No lightning. No vision. Just the echo. He called my name in the dark. And I would remember. I had made a vow. Not to be believed. Not to be loved. But to be obedient. And obedience is costly. It will cost your comfort. It will cost your reputation. Sometimes it will cost your sanity. But it will never cost your soul. That is already his. I learned something sacred through the resistance. Carrying fire will isolate you. But it will also illuminate you. And in that glow, others, though few, will find their way. So I kept going. I keep going. Even now. Because somewhere out there, there's someone standing at the edge. Someone who feels the veil thinning. Someone who knows this world is not enough. And to that soul I say, he's calling your name in the dark. Do not run. Do not hide. Do not settle for safe. Return to the fire. Even if it burns. Even if it breaks you. Even if it costs you everything. Because what waits on the other side of obedience is everything your soul was created for. And I'm only still here because I said yes. This is not a story. This is not content for your consumption. It is not entertainment to be measured by views or shared for curiosity. This is instruction. This is the last lamp in a hallway quickly darkening. This is what I saw on the other side, what I was told to carry back. And I carry it now because I was commanded. Because if I didn't, my silence would testify against me. I speak to you now as a soul who died and returned, not to live, but to warn. He called my name in the dark, and now he's calling yours. There is a deception spreading like fog across the earth. A numbing fog. It does not scream, it soothes. It does not attack, it entertains. It will not force you to turn away, it will lull you to sleep with comfort. And when your first day comes, when your breath grows thin, your pulse fades, and your soul begins its exit, you will realize you were unprepared. The first day comes for everyone, but we live like it won't. We collect things. We compare lives. We waste holy time on hollow pleasures. We choose crowds over the closet. We choose noise over truth. We choose screens over scripture. And all the while the veil thins. I am pleading with you, not as a preacher, not as a prophet, but as a witness. I have seen what happens when the soul leaves the body. I have felt the fire of remembrance. I have stood in the mercy of judgment. I have been undone by the weight of what could have been. And I am telling you now, with everything in me, most people are not ready. They are not ready to see what they've ignored, not ready to feel what they caused, not ready to face the calling they rejected, not ready to choose eternity because they never knew they had already chosen. Every silence was a direction. Every compromise was a lean. Every day lived apart from truth was a step toward shadow. Return to the fire. You who have grown cold. You who once burned bright and now flicker like a dying wick. You who were once a voice and now whisper excuses. You who feel far from God but close to religion. You who wear the name of Christ like a badge but no longer tremble at his presence. Return to the fire. Tear down the altars of distraction. Strip your soul of pretense. Fall to your knees without choreography. Cry again. Repent again. Fast not to be seen, but to be purified. Because the hour is late. And the first day comes when no one expects it. Let this be your awakening. Let this be your holy interruption. Let this be the voice that calls you out of slumber. I do not offer comfort, I offer truth. I do not bring a brand, I bear a burden. I do not speak to thrill you, I speak to save you. You were chosen to hear this. Yes, you. Not because you are better. Not because you are more spiritual. But because mercy reached you. Because God still desires you. Because the Spirit still waits for your return. You can still turn. You can still rise. You can still light the lamp again. You can still walk away from the edge of numbness and into the furnace of His love. He called my name in the dark, and I obeyed. Now He calls yours. Do not scroll past the sound of your salvation. Do not drown this in another distraction. Do not waste what heaven paid for. Kneel where you are. Whisper His name with no performance. Let the tears fall. Let your pride die. Let the old you burn. Return to the fire. Return to the fire. Return to the fire. Because this very moment may be your invitation to escape the sleep of the age and awaken to the roar of the eternal. And when your first day comes, you will not tremble in terror. You will lean into the light because you knew Him. You loved Him. You walked with Him. You waited for Him. He called your name in the dark, and you answered. There are nights now, nights where the veil thins again. Not in visions, not in dreams, but in stillness. When the world goes quiet and the weight of what I saw rises like incense in my chest, I remember the fire, the 3 days, the choice, the cost. I remember the gaze that split me open without condemnation. I remember the mercy that did not excuse me, but invited me. I remember the knowing, the deep, unshakable knowing, that I had stood in the presence of truth Himself. And once you have seen truth, everything else becomes shadow. This isn't just my story. This is your warning. This is your invitation. This is your mirror. Because whether or not you've died, your soul is already deciding. Every day, with every compromise, every silence, every act of kindness or cowardice, you are shaping your eternity. The fire will reveal it. The veil will lift. And you will remember everything. He called my name in the dark, and I answered, with fear, with trembling. But I answered, not because I was brave, but because I had seen too much not to. I do not know why He chose me. I do not know why I was allowed to return. But I do know this. It was not for me to remain the same. It was not so I could go back to normal. There is no normal after seeing eternity. It was so I could speak. so I could carry the fire into this cold world, whether or not it wanted it. And now the weight rests on you. You who are still breathing. You who still have time. You who still hear his voice in the quiet moments when the screen dims and the soul begins to stir. Return to the fire. Return to the Gospels. Return to Christ. Not the Christ of culture. Not the Christ of convenience. But the real Christ. The one who still walks the coals of consecration. The one who weeps over the sleeping church. The one who waits, patient and burning, for you to turn back. Eternity is not far. The veil is not thick. Your soul already knows. Remembers. It feels the trembling of something coming closer. This isn't just my story. It's yours. It always was. Because what I saw wasn't given to entertain you. It was given to wake you. And if you feel your heart stirring now, that's not emotion. That's recognition. That's your soul whispering back to the one who never stopped calling. He called your name in the dark. Now choose. Not tomorrow. Not when you're ready. No. Choose to surrender. Choose to repent. Choose to rise. Choose to let the fire fall again. Because the days are not promised. Because the veil will lift. Because the first day will come. And when it does, you will either lean into the light or drift into the dark. Let it be the light. Let it be him. Return to the fire. Return to the fire. Return to the fire. This is my vow kept. My story given. My burden passed on. Now it's yours. Carry it. Share it. Burn with it. And never forget. He called your name in the dark. And this time, you heard him.